Hey guys, welcome back. This time I'm going to be going over another template, but this one will be over objectives. Previously I did a template video over fighters and how to spawn them, have them fly in a circuit, and a couple other factors related to that. This one we're going to go cover how to put an objective on the map, and you can use this for either multiplayer and or single player. So I've already pre-populated my scene and imported all the buildings. If you don't know how to do that, check some of my previous videos. So you can see here we have our buildings. Now I had an ask specifically to go over an airfield. So I'm going to go ahead and use an airfield for the build out of one of the objectives. So to start our objective, we're going to need to use the icon translator MCU. So again, MCU is over here on the right, and then translator icon right here. We're going to place this sort of in the middle of all of it. When we double click, we see here we can control some color aspects of it, and there's an icon ID. If we click on the icon ID drop down, we can then select, in this case we can say attack buildings. I think often in multiplayer maps you'll see them choose let's see, attack enemy bomber flight, I think is what they do. It looks like a plane. If you see here, it changes the look of the icon here, so that in this case it looks more like a plane. But I want to be accurate, or as accurate as I can be, and I'm going to still call this buildings. And we're going to go ahead and say OK. Now in a multiplayer map, I guess to be technically correct, you could have two icons here with differing names, or I think what you'll see on most multiplayer maps is one icon, but if we wanted to be totally accurate, we'd have one. Let's say this is going to be an allied field, so this, you'd set true to access attack enemy buildings, okay, and then this one would be cover friendly buildings and true to allies. And these icons actually don't look exactly like what they look here, but so in this case you actually have two icons, each appearing to one side and not the other. Important to know, you do want to change the name of these. If you don't want a name on them, just blank this out, blank out the name field up here in their basic properties. But in this case we'll say this is a Soviet airfield, and we of course want to duplicate that for both of these, so we'll go ahead and do that. And let's also group this to make it easier on us as we're building this out. We'll call this objective 1. Alright, so we'll go and set this as our working group, and as we see here, here's our items, there's our scene, our map name is template, and we have our airfield items here. Now, first off, we want to give the players something to destroy when they come to this airfield. There's already some stuff here. As you can see, we have some, looks like fuel tanks right here. Yeah, right? Oil tanks and the like. A little small hangar. Over here it looks like we've also got some bunkers. And bunkers here. Yeah, you can kind of see what we have to work with here. So I mean, we don't have to use these, but it might be confusing to our players if they showed up thinking they could destroy them. So let's go ahead and make them able to be destroyed and to give them points for destroying them. Well, what we got to do is we got to go into our scene group here, because this stuff was pre-populated when I placed our scene in here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and right click, set as working group, and it looks like they've already grouped all of this into a group right here. So we'll select that group, and we can see it looks like 3 objects. But let's go ahead and step into this, and sure enough, it's 3 objects. Now, you could, to make them able to be destroyed and players to able to gain a score from them, you're going to need to create linked entity. So if I create a linked entity, then I can open their advanced properties here and set their country to Russia. Okay, now they've turned blue. That means that the Axis powers will be able to attack these, destroy them, and gain points from them. Now I don't like to keep things that I'm on my objective data in scene. So what I'm going to do is select them, Control X to cut them. Then I'm going to go right click on objective 1 and set as working group, and then I'm going to paste. Now that's off a little, so if I zoom in on one of, like for example this, with all of them selected, I'm going to line it back up to about where it needs to be, and then zoom out and everything's back in place. So now this is under my, all of the things that can be destroyed are under my objective group. Now, so we have that there and we can gain a score. Well, let's add some more things. There's not much here. We can also go into blocks. And if you go scroll down toward the bottom of blocks, they have, it's under S's static. We can put, let's say, some IL2s out here in these bays. As you can see here, here's an IL2. And we'll go ahead and, we can leave it at that level. Let's go ahead and create a linked entity out of this. And we will set this to Russia. Okay, so now we have soft targets on the ground. Now something we need to always remember to do here is when we selected this item, look at the durability here. It's 25,000. That is way too tough for this plane. So what we're going to want to do here is let's just go ahead and set this to 1,000. And we can cheat a little, Control and paste. And if we wanted to, we can come in here and rotate these to be in the direction we want. Again, you can do this like as I'm doing by hitting the red box down here once you have them selected. You can also rotate them by right here under orientation. I could say that I want this at 100 degrees, and so you see how it rotated it to 100, but I actually wanted it closer to something like 40. So yeah, so this, now we've populated some soft targets in here, and it's looking like more of an airfield. Now we could also, let's say, that's a good amount. Is this block as a whole? Yeah, okay. So another thing we could do, let's go ahead and add, you always like to see some fuel depots out here. GSM, here we go. And these actually have moving players, or not players, but AI looking characters walking around, so they're kind of cool looking. We'll go ahead and put some of these fuel tanks right here. Actually, most of the time you're going to see them off the runway, so probably back here, we'll say. And I can select them as a group, and we can say create a linked entity, and then go ahead and set them to Russia as well. Okay, so we've got a lot of stuff in here now. Now what we want to do is we want players to be able to come here, destroy this, these icons to disappear, and then we're going to give them credit for the destruction. So the first thing we're going to do is put out a counter, right? So let's go ahead and place a counter. Now I actually placed 2 of these to begin with. If this is a template, this is going to be the more important part of our template. But what we can do here is we can say this is going to be called objective destroyed, and this other one is going to be objective damaged. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to decide on what we want to count here. I think my personal opinion, it's cruel to have them have to destroy everything here on site. It just doesn't seem like that's how it would function in the real world or at the real time. So for example, with all our planes here, let's go ahead and select as many of these as we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this other one's just the block, the group. So that's 7 planes. Now we really want these to be the primary objective, let's say, coupled with these 2 fuel crates. Let's say that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 9 items that can be destroyed. So now we've got them all selected. We're going to right click, select object menu, And then on damaged event, we're going to send reports to damaged, right? Oh, I unselected them. So, foolish me. Okay, I got them back. And yep. So now I'm going to right click, select object menu, and on killed event, go to destroyed. Okay, so now anytime any one of these is damaged, just damaged, not destroyed, it'll send something to the object damaged. If it's destroyed, it's going to send it to the destroyed, right? Now for damaged, I'm going to go ahead and, if I look in the advanced properties, I'm not going to reset after operation. I'm only going to hit once. So that means during the game, this can only be triggered once by any one of these. And I usually use this along with the subtitle modifier here. And we can say duration of 20 seconds. And I like to put stuff in the left top. And we can make it the color red, so we'll say 150, and we can say Soviet airfield damaged, or actually better, under attack. So this serves as an early warning. Once this is triggered, and only once during the match, it will trigger this. Now that means if they come attack, they leave and they come back, this won't fire again. I usually only do this for the initial attack. It's a great way to let the other team know what the others are up to. It feels kind of realistic too. If an initial attack, they'd call for help. Now object destroyed, this is different. This is actually going to trigger the rest of our stuff. So keeping in mind we have 9 objectives tied to this, let's go ahead and say that we need them to destroy 8. So they don't need to do all of them, they just need to do 8. So they can leave one of them, or actually more, I usually give them a little more than that. So 7 things will need to be, didn't mean to do that. 7 things will need to be destroyed of this grouping, and then this will fire, okay? Now, once this fires, what are we going to want to have happen? Well, let's go ahead and add in the mission objective here. Now this translator, when we open it up and see its advanced, we have a primary task and a secondary task. Now, and it also has a success and failure and the coalition. So we're going to set the coalition here to axis. And the icon type, it's good to set to undefined so it looks different. We can see here it's got this special icon. And a primary task means that if this is triggered, then they will get a mission success or team wins at the end of the game whenever they stop. If you put a secondary task in here, then you put a secondary task and then you have, say, 3 other tasks all marked as secondary task 1, all 3 of those must be completed to get the same thing you would get from the primary task, which is a mission success. So because we've only got one objective right now, we'll set this as the primary task and hit OK. Now, when this fires, it's going to tell us that, or tell the game that it's been successful. The players don't know, so we'll need to add a message in here. And we'll borrow from our previous message, Soviet airfield destroyed. And so there we have it. Our airfield's destroyed. A warning goes out once anything is damaged. Now what about these icons? It's a good indicator for players to see the icons disappear. They know that point is cleared or damaged or isn't worth anything in the grand scheme of the game. The best way to deal with that is, again, our deactivate trigger, which is another MCU. So we will target link off this and then also make sure that it's linked to these 2. So now this will fire, deactivate our icons, send out a message telling the players that the airfield's destroyed, and give us a mission success at the end of our mission. Now, what I would do at this point is select all of this, and then we can save this selection to a file or group it, and then save it to a file, and this would be our template. I would leave all of this out of the, I mean, you can bundle this together if you'd want, but I, as a practice, usually only have from the counters up in my mechanics as a template. And that way, all you got to do is select everything you want, right-click, and choose what you want it to report to, and then increment the counter depending upon how much you have on that site. Now, let's also say that we want to have another, and here we'll go ahead and make a template of this. And let's go ahead and back out. Oh, we'll do it here. That's fine. Let's go ahead and say objective template. Whoop. All right. So that is saved as a template. Now let's also say we want to have another objective. So we want to have more than one objective. Well, up here north of the airfield, we see that here's some bunkers and looks like some barracks or storage buildings of some kind. So let's say we want to use these. Now these again were also part of the scene. We didn't place these. So we're going to have to right click on scene, set as working group, and oh look, they're right there. So we can select those, create linked entity again, which allows us to access its advanced properties. And we can set it to Russia, and we can click OK. Now again, we want to put this in the same group as the other. We want these to be in their own group, so we're going to cut them out of the picture now. We're going to go back to our main map group, and we're going to paste them back in, and I'm going to try and place them as close as I can to where they were by looking at the shadows there. And it looks like they're right about on target. Now, we'll go ahead and group these into what we call objective 2. Oop. 2, and there we have it. So, this is objective 2. We can step in here, and then we can, well, let's remove that. Don't want that. Let's go ahead and import our template. Import from file, and here's our object template. We'll import, and here we imported. Of course, it imported down here, so I'll have to move it up here. But our mechanics are already set up for us, and we can just right-click, select object menu, on damaged event, go here, on killed event, go here, and make sure that this is incremented to 2. I'll be a little more strict now because we've only got 2 objectives, and now we've got to change the icon placement. These are buildings, so we get to save that, but we can now, instead of, we'll say Soviet Depot. Soviet Depot. We'd also have to change this to depot as well. So if you want to use vague language here so you don't have to come in and change it, that's fine. I don't mind it. I think it's valuable for them to see what exactly was destroyed. And you can also create other messages. If you want a congratulations message for just the Germans, you can do that by coming into your translator and changing your coalition to be safe, or only Axis you want them to receive. You uncheck or set false on allies, and then you can say Soviet Depot destroyed, congratulations. You can do something to that effect. So that's how you would control who sees what. So here we have our 2 icons. Now these buildings make up their own objective, and you can see here we have 2 objectives. Now remember, this is set to primary task. Well, now that we have 2 Soviet objectives, or 2 Axis, the Axis needs to destroy both of these. We're going to set it to secondary task 1. Okay. We got to come here to objective 1, set as working group. We can cheat again by right clicking and saying move camera to object. Here we are. We can double click, second task 1. Now a German pilot is going to have to come in here and destroy both of these to get a success at the end of the mission. Now, let's say we want to end the game at that point, our mission end. So what we could do is we could set, I would usually do this outside of both of the objective groups, create a end mission translator, and then again a counter. And it's important what you name this one. I usually, when I do this sort of thing, I'll name it end game or something to that effect. And we can put a timer. Timer. This will trigger the timer, which will end the game. And when it takes 2 inputs, it'll trigger the timer, which will give you 10 minutes or 5 minutes, let's say that. Now, what I want to do is I want to trigger this when my objectives are destroyed. When both of them are destroyed, I want it to trigger the end game, which will put a 5-minute counter and then end the map. And then we can also say 20 seconds. We can say at the left top, Axis wins. This would be something you might see in a basic multiplayer map. In order to do this, we're going to go ahead and step into Objective 1, and from this counter, we're going to go ahead and over here we look, you see targets in basic properties. Let's just double click on one of the blank spaces, and look, here's our end game. I named it end game so it popped out, but you could also look at the ID and also do this. So we're going to go ahead and double check this, and I just linked it. You can't see it, but you can see the link going to it. So I linked between groups. That's something that's handy to know how to do. And we'll do the same here. We'll go ahead and here, double click, end game, and there we have that. So let's go ahead and step out. We will select these, group them, and call them logic. And so that's my game logic. And so this would end the map. Give them. You could put also in your message, you've got 5 minutes. Now, if you wanted to, as an aside, if you wanted to say this was a single player game, and let's throw a single player plane in here real quick. We'll say it's Germany player in the air. So start in the air, 1,000 feet. Again, that wouldn't do us much good because we need to do some ground attack in this map, but this is just for an example. So let's say that we didn't want any of this. We once these things were destroyed, we wanted to tell the pilot to instead land. Well, and in the game when he lands. So then you could just remove this. We want the player to end the mission when he's safely landed. We could say Axis wins, and then you could say return to base. Oh, oops. Return to base. And what that would mean is that if we created an airfield here, we could, or we don't have to even be that specific. What we could do is we could set our end mission, MCU, mission end, and we could right click on our player plane, select object menu, and on plane landed event, end mission. So once you take off, that means he might take off, not succeed, land. It'll end the mission as soon as he's landed. And I think that's generally how I treat that. There's lots of different ways to do it. So you could, as you can see here, took off, landed, destroyed, critical damage, crashed, wounded. Yeah, so you can do that, or honestly, you can just direct them to land altogether and have them in the game. Now, when they end the game, because these two have been tripped, they should get a mission success message. So this really isn't necessary other than for the translator in this case. But you can see here, you could export this as a template as well if you wanted to. And some more of the complex game mechanics can require that. For example, if we have two sides, both of them achieving both objectives, you might want to put in some mechanics here to create some sort of tiebreaker, leaving one of the objectives of like the secondary tasks only available if only one of them can achieve them, in other words. I'm not going to go into that, but you can kind of see how that could play out here if you needed it to. And that's what you do with multiplayer maps. So this is the gist of some objective templates, so you can use these to create your own objectives. The only other things I guess I'll mention is we saw earlier, if we wanted to have AI attack, for example, we could use an attack area here and have them come attack this, and you could check my previous videos on how to use the attack MCU here and the like, but you could also direct a defense force to show up for an attack, and I'll cover this in future videos. This video is really just over the objectives themselves. I hope that helps, and I'll be coming out with some more videos soon.